All right, welcome to the Columbus Common Council Special Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, December 10th, 2019. The time is now, fleeting me, 6:04. Pat, if you could please take the roll.
Gray is absent. Johnson?
Here.
Reed is absent. Ryan?
Here.
Tylen excused. Tome? Here. Traxler?
Here. This meeting was noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. First thing we need to do is approve the agenda. Any alterations or questions on the agenda?
As submitted.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Citizen comments on agenda items. No citizens are present. Next up, number 5, discuss and consider MOU with Kestrel Ridge to connect to the city storm sewer. We talked about this at the last committee of the whole, and it looks like Jason's here if we have questions. I don't know, Jason, did you have anything else that has come up since?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I know we worked through the memo and made a couple revisions per the comments that we had at the last meeting, or at least Paul should have. Also, I know that the, as we had mentioned, that the operator for Kestrel had found and located the manhole and it was appropriate size and depth. So I think between the revisions and really everything that we had previously discussed, I didn't have anything more to offer.
Thanks, Jason. Looks like the MOU is here. Any questions on the MOU? Ed?
I have some wordsmithing issues and or questions. Starting with 1, 2, 3, fourth whereas clause, the fourth line. I believe there should be the word "to" between desires and install.
Okay.
I don't know who I'm directing these to, or if anybody needs to agree or sign off with them or whatever. The next whereas clause, should it be Columbus agrees to allow Kestrel and Hoffman to connect? Are they not both connecting? Yes. Okay. I would propose amending it in that regard. Turning the page, item 1, Kestrel and Hoffman shall, is it at their sole expense?
It's?
Well,
Or there.
it's two, so shall be responsible for constructing any and all stormwater maintenance facilities on its parcels. Is it more than one? It's 2 parcels are referenced on the first page. All right, so then the next sentence would be on its parcels. And then as they deem, not it deems appropriate, since it's 2 again. Would be my suggestion. I'm not the attorney, but I think it's cleaner.
Is Attorney Johnson coming tonight?
And then in 2C, on that same page, should be Kestrel and Hoffman shall be responsible for keeping the connection clean and free. I query. And then item 7, I believe it should be their successors and assigns instead of just successor.
Someone on staff following along there and taking notes on that? Okay.
Those are the only questions or clarifications that I have on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Mike, did you have something?
Yeah. Is there a DT meeting this Thursday or not? That would be the following week. Okay. we have this item up for possible action following this meeting this evening, but I think we should probably consider maybe waiting for Paul to review those suggestions from Ed. I think they're good suggestions. And then maybe have it at the meeting on the 17th, on the regular meeting, for action. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'd like Attorney Johnson to be able to.
I know they were ready to go, but this, this is pretty, there's a lot there that needs to be updated, so I'm fine with that.
Let me just throw out, Paul, are you comfortable with those changes, that those changes accurately capture what the concepts are, that it's both entities in each place? Because sometimes it's one and sometimes it's both. That's what caused me concern. However, if we're clear that it always should be both, I think I'd be comfortable if it was amended and we passed it tonight as amended. But I do throw out that if there is concern whether it should be one or both, then yes, we should delay it.
The best I can answer that is the intent is that both parties should be the part of the agreement, so consistently it should be referred to as both. I think the confusion lied in initially, Attorney Johnson had indicated that he thought that it was just a single connection from Kestrel and not both parcels. And I think him and I worked through that, it would be both parcels, but it kind of sounds like he made several changes but hadn't incorporated the language as you had pointed out. So I think the intent is exactly what you had pointed out, Ed.
I guess I would suggest that we, if we are comfortable that we can draft these changes into this and then pass it in a half hour, that we do that. And if Attorney Johnson then says, whoa, that's not the intent, we can bring it back and repass it. We don't have to sign it until they sign off. That would allow these people to move forward with their work as quick as possible.
Sure. I think when the Kestrel representatives came in, I think they're doing their work already anyway, but this would allow for the actual connection from my understanding. So 1 week's not going to hold up their work. It seemed like they were still able to move ahead, so I'd rather make sure we've got everything crossed off, and if Paul's got any concerns, that we just put it on the regular agenda next Tuesday.
Sounds great. I just didn't want to be throwing sand in the gears.
Sure. I don't think we are.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're good. Yeah. Unless I don't know if we're gonna have another meeting after this, so we don't have the people. All right. Yes. All right. Anything else on item number 5? Okay, seeing none. Next up, number 6, discuss and consider the ordinance to create sections 1831 through 1836 of the City of Columbus Code of Ordinances concerning building regulations. So this is that section that Paul pulled out and said we need to specifically adopt at the next meeting, right? I think. Yeah. Wait. It's not on the next meeting. So this would just be for us to go over again. This is the section that he pulled out. He's not here, so I don't really know exactly what the changes were, if there were any changes. I don't quite remember from back to last meeting exactly. Is there anybody from staff that wants to talk about this further? I'm really not sure. Go ahead, Dave.
Unfortunately, the planner could not make it tonight because he's home with a sick child, so I think he could speak to this, but I know that the intent was to make some modifications to it so that you could adopt it at the next meeting, so it'd be in a timely way before the first of the year.
Okay. Ed?
I spoke with the planner today and determined that this is applying to commercial buildings. And he satisfied me as to most of my questions. I do have 2 wordsmithing ideas again, and that is, and maybe it's just not my awareness of the way that it should work, but on page 2, section 1834, plan review, item E talks about the planned review, and in item F, it talks about a plan review. And I don't know if those are different items or they should be consistent. He did not have an answer as to that, but it jumped out at me as, are they different things, or is that exactly right, or should they be similar?
Okay.
Then in section 1835, I believe that there should be a comma after the word alterations and after the word feet. I believe that's a clause that should be set off by commas, just for reading's sake. Other than that, I have no problems with the ordinance as presented.
Okay. Well, this would be something that, you know, if move forward, they would have staff, you know, the planner would have time to review, and and Attorney Johnson as well. I mean, there's still time. I think, when's the next meeting? The 17th? Okay. Okay.
So other than that, I'm fine with it as presented.
Katie or Mayor Tolm, did you have anything to add?
I'm just guessing here, but I think that these specific sections that we're being asked to approve by the end of the year is to get this in place so we can have the local building inspector inspect the commercial properties under a certain, as defined in here, under a certain size. I think the 1834-E that you're referring to gives us the ability to waive that jurisdiction if we would not want to be responsible for doing that. I think that's what that does, Ed. I'm not sure, but I think that's what we need to hear from Paul. But I think that's what that's supposed to be doing.
Right. The question is there a difference between a planned review and a plan review? Or are one of them wrong?
Okay, I see.
Yeah, that's something we will make sure is answered
Clarification.
before the next meeting.
Okay. And my understanding is that this should be going to the regular meeting on the 17th for
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
consideration. Okay.
Katie, got something?
Well, I was just going to chime in and say, you know, the section 1834, it says plan review at the top. So
Yeah.
I'm going to make an assumption that it was just strange language.
Hopefully. Okay. Pat's got that note, and we will make sure that that's answered on the 17th before we take any action. Anything else on this item? Okay. Next up, number 7, discuss and consider the list of streets from Rupert Milky for mill and overlay for inclusion in the bid package for alternates for Hibbard Street reconstruction. He did provide in our packet some information. I think, again, this is, you know, he's got some streets and some length, but again, we kind of still, he probably still needs to know what we're gonna spend. So, you know, we got to get that number too before we can actually narrow it down further. I don't know, Jason, did you have anything you wanted to add tonight? Okay, come on up. That'd be great.
So based off of what was in the review tonight in the capital budget packet, I did notice that there was a line item in here for $203,000 for mill and overlay projects. So based off of this list that you have, going through, obviously we had some good candidates and some okay candidates. So just to give you an idea, you know, what that dollar value would equal, I would probably recommend Folsom Street. We talked a little bit about that kind of being high priority since we didn't do that as part of the reconstruction, and I felt like that was something where, you know, we certainly could overlay it, and I think the pavement surface would last. I do like Avalon Road. between Wildwood and Brookside, there is a lower rated section of Avalon. I think that would make a great candidate. The curbs are in good condition there. I think that would have certainly improved that section of roadway. Skipping Middleton Street, jumping down to Waterloo, there's two sections there, one 450 feet, the other 250. That kind of finishes out Waterloo. We did some overlays last year, and there's a couple spots on there that I think are still not great. They're not as bad as what we had repaired, but I think that would make sense to kind of finish that, what we started. Skipping Harrison, there's a little part of West Prairie between Charles and Hibbert. There's no curb up there, and it's pretty narrow pavement, so it's relatively inexpensive. About $10,000 to mill and overlay that. We could do that. So I think the DPW 2 years ago might have done part of that, but didn't finish it. He only did like half the street. So again, just kind of finishing something up. And then West School from Charles to Hibbert is quite bad. Obviously, I know we're fixing Hibbert, but that would be another recommendation. I think that makes sense since there's no curb and gutter. There's no water main under those streets because the water main served off of either Hibbert or Charles. And then the only other one down in the lower category that I think might make sense, it's kind of a heavily trafficked area, and I've noticed the failing starting to exacerbate the last year or two, is on Tower Drive, kind of from Faith to Park Avenue. So kind of by the BP there, from kind of past the bank. That section I think would be a good candidate, and I think certainly it would make sense just due to the traffic. If I take all of those streets and add them up, I get to about 215,000 an estimate. So again, that just gives you a benchmark of, we can combine or alternate bid those. I think what I would propose, if you guys are okay with that $200,000 level mark, I would propose probably picking a group such as that, and then just maybe taking one of those streets and making it an alternate bid. So if prices come in favorable, we could maybe do all of them. If not, we could still fund the costs of what your budget would be. So again, if we're just looking at streets only, we're not talking, and I know there was some discussion about maybe repairing some of the park roads or some other things. But if we're just looking at streets, that kind of gets you to the amount that's in the bid. So I just wanted to offer that up to give you a little benchmark. So if you guys wanted to discuss the dollar value, you knew that obviously it's, for example, $300,000 would get you that whole top group. 200,000, you're going to have to omit several of those streets. So does that make sense? Any questions on that?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
You skipped over Warner Street, and I noticed, I actually drove down there. I drove through a lot of these areas. I'm looking at the streets on this list, and I did notice that Warner Street is pretty bad there, and with the park there, I think maybe we should consider that one. 250 square or linear feet, is that what that is?
Yeah, so that's a section that doesn't have curb. And so the idea, and Zach and I had talked, we had some stormwater issues with the water kind of running off the street through one of the neighbors or the property owner's yards there. The idea would be to put in curb on that section of road and then probably overlay it through there. It's the pavement's bad as well. I think that's a great candidate, and that's why we kind of put it on the list up there. So certainly that could be substituted in for one of those other ones or added to.
Well, and then that brings me to my second thought is West School Street. I believe we discussed, complete reconstruction on that, but chose Hibbard over that and some others. And I fully believe that West School Street should be completely reconstructed, maybe at the next one, maybe in 2 years. So I wouldn't want to put more money into a street that is a potential candidate for a reconstruction in the fairly near future. So I would maybe swap that one out with, with Warner, but, that's my 2 cents.
My logic for school is that section or one block is not a concrete street, it's just asphalt. So if we repair that, I think that's something that we could omit off of the reconstruction at that point. If we had a good surface on that, unless we wanted to put curb on it, but all those connecting streets over the hill don't have curb on now, so I don't know that even if we rebuilt that street, we'd necessarily add curb to it. So that seemed to be kind of the end of school we could chop off and treat independently, I think. At least just a thought again with school, but I don't disagree why we would do anything other than that, because the rest of school is all concrete, and that would require us to remove the pavement and redo the curbs and all of that stuff, so.
Yeah, that's just where I was at. Katie, go ahead.
Just talking about the West School Street between Charles and Hibbert again, it is a really terrible little stretch just going over the hill there. But I think if we are doing Hibbert Street and we are adding curb and gutter, maybe it's something that we're gonna wanna add curb and gutter to that street as well,
Yep.
if it does become a candidate. So I guess I agree with you, Andy, and maybe pushing
And-
that off.
And does
Um,
that section have sidewalks now on West
Does on one
School?
side.
One
but it
side,
doesn't
partway.
So
part
we
way.
plan on
presumably,
connecting
when
it.
it's reconstructed, you'll be able to connect those sidewalks to the sidewalk on Hibbard.
We plan on doing that with this Hibbert
Yeah.
project.
Oh, okay, but
Yeah.
only one side though.
The only one side, yeah.
Okay.
But we could add, obviously. to
Easy,
them.
yeah, okay,
It's just a few panels, I guess.
makes sense.
I have a question again to Middleton Street, down in the area, sort of by Mullins and that. That street's in pretty bad disarray. Is there? It doesn't have curb and gutter or anything down there, does it?
Middleton Street?
Yeah.
Middleton Street's actually not too bad. Part of it was reconstructed, I think, in 2009 or 10 with the water main project. And out by Park Street or Ludington, part of that was reconstructed. But there's a little section in the middle that's kind of not great pavement. So the idea there, again, would be there's about 250 feet that we'd kind of connect the good pavement sections and overlay that middle section. And there is curb through there. It's kind of by the Dickinson intersection. Dickinson's in really terrible shape, by the way. but-
That was gonna
Yeah.
be my next comment, but.
Okay.
Yeah, Dickinson, I see as an okay candidate.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of alligator
Right.
cracking on that one.
And that's kind of a toss-up in my mind of how good the base is under there. I think the curb is relatively okay. We could overlay it. But then my concern would be, and we've seen this around town where we've done overlay projects, and if the base isn't good, we see failure on the overlays relatively soon. It doesn't take long to start really seeing some cracking and stuff come through. I threw it in there as an okay candidate. I'm certainly willing to take some chances to improve some really terrible surfaces if it's like Folsom where it's just rubbleized and we have no other choice other than rebuild it or try and get it to the next, rebuild cycle. So if we can overlay and get 10 years out of it, I think we've won. And some of these streets we might not be able to wait to rebuild. So, would they be an overlay candidate? I think they're okay. I think we could try it.
That's a pretty big, is that 575 feet?
Yeah, I'm estimating Dickinson to be about $40,000 to do that Dickinson project.
I would take the Dickinson over Tower Drive, but I know Tower Drive isn't fabulous, but it's certainly way better than Dickinson.
Well,
Or-
and
yeah.
dollar-wise, it swaps out. They're both about 40,000. So, you could certainly do one over the other.
That would be my suggestion for an alternate bid in the OK candidates field. But Ed, what you got?
Will we be seeking county aid again next year in a county project?
We will.
All right, would one of these fit that parameter, or when will we know what the county aid number would be?
County aid number is running always right around $10,000. So candidates on this list would be the West School Street piece, the West Prairie Street piece. Maybe East Harrison is a little more expensive, but it kind of gets us in that ballpark. So there's a few candidates on the lower end of the dollar total there that we could certainly look at. But you're absolutely right. Eventually we would take whatever list we have and we would identify that candidate out of there for next year as well.
Do you think that Warner Street section would be more than 10K?
It's about 15 is what I got it estimated.
Because you're
And
gonna put curbs in. You'd have to put curb
I
in.
think we got to put some curb in there too. So it's probably between 15 and 20 total fix.
Okay. And then Middleton Street, what was your estimate on that?
About 15. Sorry I didn't get you guys the cost on these.
It's okay.
I put this together late and,
Because you can, I mean, if you're gonna be in that area, you could get Dickinson and Middleton
absolutely.
at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, excuse me. I don't know. I mean, these are. I mean, I think Folsom to me is a no-brainer. Again, I do, you know, that needs to be done. If you have confidence that the utilities will last, then
Yep.
I have confidence that they will. Avalon Road, I did not get a chance to drive that part of it, so I'm not. I don't know how bad that is, but if you compare, because I know what Dickinson's like. What of the streets in the top section would compare to Dickinson as far as condition? Like, are there any probably other than Folsom, are any worse than Dickinson?
Probably not.
That's my 2 cents. I don't know. Mike, what do you got?
Is Dickinson, is that a concrete street?
No.
It's not? Okay.
I don't think so. I think it's all asphalt.
Anyone else? Ideas? Go ahead.
I didn't get a chance to drive down the north part of Dickinson either, but or recently, but I do remember it being pretty terrible. So I think we do have to go with kind of the worst candidates, if that's my 2 cents, I guess. But Prairie Street from South Charles to Hibbard, so that's another one without curb and gutter.
Charles
Just
and Hibbert,
that.
yes, correct.
Okay.
Without, and part of that was done, like I said, I believe it was 2 years ago. About 100 feet of it from Hibbert up the hill, and then they just kind of cut it off and stopped. So the road, the rest of the way to Charles is still in its original disarray, if you will.
Okay. But I'm still, I'm sorry, and I'm still kind of hoping for Tower Drive. I think that one's kind of hit a tipping point where, you know, if we don't take care of it soon with the amount of traffic that's on there, that we're going to end up having to potentially throw a lot more money at it if the base fails somehow. It's pretty bumpy right there.
Mike?
That's my only concern too, if we're looking at okay candidates. I mean, I'm not really sure what the threshold is between good candidates or okay.
Subjective.
Okay, but I know Tower is a well-traveled road, and we did a little repair work there a couple of years ago, near the water tower. And if I compare that to Dickinson Boulevard over there, I just feel like Tower is more well-traveled than that, is that you can avoid that certain part of Dickinson, I guess, maybe to a certain extent by choosing a different, you can come in it from 2 ways, so. I just don't know what the total amount's going to be and what's gonna be realistic for borrowing and how big the number's gonna get, but I do think that Tower, if we're gonna go to the okay candidates, would be the one that's most obvious to me because it's well used.
What was the Folsom estimate?
About 52,000. You know, likewise, Avalon Road is about 52,000. Now, you know, again, Avalon, you know, this is very subjective. I mean, I look at Avalon and say, you know, it's obviously one of the higher traveled roads we have. I mean, there's a lot of traffic coming in and out of that road. It's not that the middle section is to the conditions some of these other streets are, as far as, I mean, it hasn't alligated into, you know, tiny pieces, say like Folsom has. But kind of going back to that methodology Katie had is, you know, when I look at this, You know, what happens is when we have highly trafficked areas like on Tower Drive and we start seeing the pavement crack and fail as it does, water gets in there, and then what we eventually start to see is base failure, and then you get some rutting going on, you know, some areas that are low, and then that just kind of compounds the water ponding on the road. And so, you know, we've crack sealed Avalon several times. I know we've probably slurry sealed that stretch once or twice, but it just continues to kind of degrade. And because of the volume of traffic, I usually always kind of use that as a judge when I put these recommendations in there. Again, I know if you're looking just purely at road surface, you know, some of these will probably jump up, you know, higher on the list. But so, you know, certainly we could take out an Avalon if we felt like, you know, maybe we can get another few years out of that. But again, if we're borrowing now, the likelihood of borrowing to do mill and overlays at a higher level again down the road might be a few years out. And when we see some of these higher traveled areas, I think you're going to see more impact or more degradation to those areas than a Dickinson that might have a vehicle on it. You know, maybe there's 20 vehicles a day on that road, where Avalon you're probably going to have, you know, several hundred or, you know, whatever on that travel. So again, you know, it's very subjective, and so I think it really determines what you're looking for. If you're looking for, you know, kind of higher traffic areas that might be more impacted over time, or if you're going to be looking at just pure surface condition. I think they're all okay candidates, but I just tried to group them to give you a little bit of an idea of, you know, and again, based on utility condition. I think all of the ones we picked, the utilities underneath the roadways are to the condition that they will last that period of time the overlay will last. So I don't, you know, we didn't pick any where it's like, oh, you know, the water main's in bad shape or the sewer's in bad shape, and, you know, I wouldn't feel comfortable, you know, recommending an overlay on a road like that. So again, just if you're kind of looking at utilities as a gauge, I think they all have okay utilities that'll last through this life cycle. So
And the Waterloo section, what's your estimate on that?
I'm putting that one at about 43,000.
So, if my math is correct, you could do, you know, for 227,000, you could do Folsom, Avalon, Waterloo, Dickinson, and Tower. At least some of the little stretches left, and if you get 10,000 for, you know, 10,000 from the county, you know, then you're at really only borrowing 10,000 more than what was thrown in there as wherever that random number came from.
Right.
We didn't set that number.
Right.
We can set it at $1 million if we want. You know,
Sure.
we have no idea where that. I don't know where that number came from. It's just in there.
Mhm.
So we'll need to.
Well, my hope was that at least this was enough information, or kind of gives you a little guidance or benchmark for when you look at that number. Then you can kind of decide that, you know, if it's an okay range, or, you know, if you felt comfortable maybe adding in some things. Again, with any of these options, I would certainly say let's pick some streets and then put in one or two as an alternate to, if we get good pricing like we do with the maintenance work, then maybe we can do a little more. And, you know, my hope would be, especially keep in mind that the reason why we're talking about it tonight is I want to try and get a little direction as we prepare this Hibbert Street reconstruction package to put these in. And because we have such a large project already on the books, my perception is we should get great pricing. You know, I'm estimating asphalt pricing at $80 a ton. Now, you know, you tell me what the price of gas is 6 months from now, and I'll tell you what asphalt costs. But based on this year, $80 was the going rate. But because we have so much asphalt between Hibbert and this project, usually that'll push prices down $10 to $20 a ton would be my guess. So we could certainly stretch that dollar even further. So again, piggybacking it with the Hibbert project, it would be my recommendation to try and get, you know, the most bang for the buck we can get out of these projects. So we'll structure it in a way that we have some options for you when we get bids in, and hopefully we can combine some of these or select some of the alternates and do it all. I mean, I don't think we'll get everything on this list, but, you know, whatever we pick, I think we'll be able to have an option of getting all of that work done.
Ed?
Do you believe that there's any efficacy or price advantage if we would pick streets closer to Hibbert as part of that, or the town is so small it wouldn't matter? My thought is, are they able to keep the equipment closer, and they would maybe, as part of their calculus, be able to reduce things or not?
I think that may factor into the price, but because of the tonnage is gonna be so large with these two projects, I think contractors aren't gonna really use that as a big factor. I think they're just gonna look at pure tonnage and say, this is a big project, we wanna get it, so we'll aggressively price it. That's my guess. I think if they were smaller and we didn't have as big a budget, I think there might be.
Dave, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions, and this may be appropriate for the next item on the agenda, but Jason, the candidate projects and the OK candidate projects, do you have a total estimate if they were to go ahead and do all of them?
Both the good candidates and the OKs?
Right.
$690,000
Okay.
for everything on the list.
I'm looking at the finance director's report, and she's given a compilation of fund balances and, of the various projects, and I'm looking at the 2018 general obligation bond for 2018 street projects, and the report says that the projects have been completed, essentially. And in checking with bond counsel, the structure of that bond issue that the city did included street improvement projects. And the balance as of the end of September is $385,452.
Does that
That's
count for
that.
the fire truck though?
Well, I understand the bids for the fire truck were less than estimated. But is that, those are funds that you have on hand that you could carry forward for street improvement projects in 2020? And you could maybe stretch it a little bit and include as alternates on the Hibbert bid. And then when the engineer comes back and you have actual bids, you can use funds that you have on hand to make, financial decisions on what you can afford to do. Would that work?
You're looking at me. We have, I think after the fire truck. After the fire truck purchase, we'll have about $95,000 in there. But one of the things to consider with that too is we aren't including any work for the parking lot by the pavilion. And that is one of the uses that was identified in the 2018 bond. And so that could be money used to repair that parking lot as well. And then, like Dave said, the difference could easily go towards street improvements, because that was one of the identified purposes of that bond.
And the 2017 bond as well could be used? Or do we have to wait a little bit longer on that one?
That bond was actually, I think primarily for the truck and for the resurfacing of the pool.
For James Street?
The 2017 general obligation note.
Bond.
Oh, the bond? Yeah, that's James Street. And actually, we got a bill today from the state for James Street for
For how much?
$10.56. The sewer got
So-
one for 65 cents.
So you could use, you might have $69,916.
I can't really say that. The
Or-
frustrating things is,
$50,000.
right,
I mean, you're gonna spend another, do you think we'll have another $20,000 in bills?
I don't think we will have any bills. From what we paid the state through that project, from the records that I've kept, it appears as if the city has made their contribution towards the parking lanes and the other items that we talked about or obligated ourselves to for that bond. However, the state says that they have the legal right to invoice us during that 2-year audit period, even though they've considered the project complete.
When does that end?
I'm sorry, I didn't put the letter in there. I want to think that ends in like August of 2020. I'll double check that though, Andy, just to make sure I give you the right date.
Trina?
Oh, I guess I love the idea of completing a ginormous list of street improvements. I'm just been uncomfortable to borrow so much for simple mill and overlay. And I just feel like there's so many likely repairs and expenses that we'll find out about shortly that we'll need to borrow for.
Which fund, which money borrowing are you talking about?
Oh, the idea.
Like you're talking about above and beyond the 203,000 that she has on the next agenda item, or
Oh, I was just saying, the idea for getting everything on the good and okay
Oh, okay.
list. Yeah, just
Sure.
like, uh-oh.
yeah, and that's a good point, and I don't disagree with that at all. I mean I do think Dave has a really great point. You might be sitting on another $150,000 easy on this that some could be used. I don't know, but it would certainly be able to stretch it out, like he said. Mike?
My concern, I mean, I'm very happy that the council is looking at trying to address the street surface condition. My concern is the funding. I mean, I've said this several times during this conversation in years past, but gives me a little heartburn to borrow money for 10 years for a mill and overlay project that we hope will last 10 years. I think that we need to find a more sustainable method of funding these projects. I'm more comfortable if we can find a mix of funding, and as opposed to just saying how much does this cost and we're going to borrow that much, but going through and identifying the funding that's available, like unused proceeds. I would not want to spend bond proceeds that take 20 years to pay off for a mill and overlay project, even though the money is available. I think that those funds need to be applied to the Hibbert Street project, for instance, to offset the bonding for that, so that the money's getting put into the right area. And also, I think we need to consider levying for mill and overlay. We have a $75,000 a year budget for crack sealing and for base patching, but I think if we know that we've got a list this long of mill and over candidates that we need to start levying for things like this. I think people pay their property taxes and they have the expectation that we're going to be fixing infrastructure, but all the infrastructure repairs can't be from borrowing all the time. We've got to take that out of our levy to a certain degree. So I do think that we have options. I think there's some money in the capital projects fund that we levied for this year that we could help to offset this number a little bit, and I think it would be appropriate. But I just want to be cautious and try to keep that number within controlled a little bit, or get him a list to get out and get to bid, and then find out what the numbers are. Maybe the numbers are going to come back a lot better than we anticipate because of the amount of asphalt that we'd be going through as well. But
What direction can we give Jason without giving him a number? We just gonna give him 10 streets and say, put those out to bid? And
I think it's how he puts them out to bid, David.
Well, I would suggest if that you ask the staff and I to do a little more analysis on this and do a summary for you. The idea is that we look at funds that you have on hand already in the capital projects from borrowing or levy or what have you, and put together a number, and I'll work with the engineer. We come back with something and that is kind of a little tighter package for you to look at and get your approval and move forward with the alternates. I would stretch it a little bit, because obviously with the engineers structuring that bid with the alternates, you can choose what you want to do, and the idea is to just get as much of the funds on hand towards that. And I agree with the mayor. I've developed a capital improvement, long-range capital improvement programs where the funding is not borrowed for mill and overlay and crack filling and seal coating. And I think that's something that you want to work towards doing. You have levy, you have the aid from DOT that can be specifically designated, for those annual maintenance type projects that you want to do ongoing, that you're not borrowing money for, and you're preserving your borrowing capacity for the big projects that are going to be 20 plus years.
Yep.
So if we can look at, putting together what we have on hand and do a reasonable job with funds that we have for next year, and then work towards a capital plan that is using, funds that are in the annual budget for these types of projects. And I mean, as you know, and you're talking about, these projects, you need to keep on top of them, because if you defer, they get a year older, and then it compounds, and then you're forced to borrow. And you want a plan that you can put in place and try to, you have the tools of the pacer and the analysis and so forth. You can put that all together and do a reasonable job of estimating the useful life of the road and the utilities, and having a plan in place and working towards a part of that coming from your annual budget, because you're going to be in the same place next year. And you don't want to be borrowing every year. I mean, just do the math. Figure this out. 200,000 over 10 years. How much is that on the debt? You want to work away from that, right? So, how does that sound if we get together? We try to put together a package for the next meeting and look at something that we could go forward with on the Hibbert project, and attach this as alternates for it.
I mean, one of the things that I've just been wanting us to, look into is a possibility of just a wheel tax. Maybe not that much, but something that would be from a auto-related source going directly to the, basic maintenance of the road surface. I mean, we can't decide that at all tonight, but I just want to have that, looked into a bit as a possibility.
I can't remember, Kim had mentioned that before, I think. I don't remember what the financial impact would have been. I thought maybe it was like $30,000, but
It
that's not.
depends on what's charged.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You could charge $10, $15, $20, so it would have to be decided.
I couldn't remember what she had said, but yeah, something to consider. Go ahead.
I just wanted to chime in. I remember us talking about that. I believe it was $15 that was proposed. I could be wrong, but I do remember several points being made about that, about how much through traffic we have here in Columbus, having to do with all the different county highways, state highways, things of that nature that, our residents would be paying solely for those roads, with the wheel tax and nobody else adding on to that, so whether it be trucks or.
Putting the burden on the citizens when we have five state highways that go through town. That's something to consider. Trina,
Oh,
go
no,
ahead,
just
sorry.
I wasn't really picturing the funding going towards the highways, because that wouldn't feel fair at all. Just regular streets.
Mhm.
But I don't know.
Anyone else? We've kind of already bled into the next agenda item, so if you guys are okay with it, we can just keep going right into number 8. Review and discuss
So,
the list of capital projects for consideration in the general obligation note. Go ahead, Dave, you had something?
What do you think of staff putting together a tighter package with funds on hand to fund mill and overlay and doing alternates for the Hibbert project?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea, my opinion. Mike?
We know we have, I think Hibbert Street we have a little bit more information on. What I'm hoping we can do is take the funds we have on hand and apply them to the appropriate place, so to speak. We have the asset disposal fund we talked about during the passage of the budget. That's going to be very appropriate for some of the things on the list tonight that I think we can commit those funds to this year. But I think if there are funds, 20-year funds, that we try to commit them to the Hibbard Street project to reduce the amount we're bonding in 20 years, and then we talk about the note borrowing after that to offset that for mill and overlay. So the right fund's going to the right place. I don't feel good about taking 20-year bonds and putting them into mill and
I
overlay.
agree with you.
But I
That's-
think if you get the right things in the right place, I think we'll see enough savings to kind of offset that bonding where we could be a little bit more comfortable.
So your priority would be to offset the Hibbard project first.
With the
With
20-year,
the funds on
with
hand.
bond funds, correct.
And then
To-
the mill and overlay?
Yeah, but ultimately, we would be reducing the amount that we're bonding at the end of the day. You know, the note may be the same, but we're reducing the amount we're bonding for Hibbard. So it's just utilizing the funds we have on hand, as you stated, Dave. So,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, if we have bond funds we haven't utilized in the last 2 years, it's best to expend them before we bond again. Because
Exactly.
we can bond for that project that wasn't completed possibly. So that makes perfect sense to me.
Okay. So on the list, we have at the top, we have the Hibbard. We already kind of know where we're at with that. New information about maybe using these 20-year bond leftover funds, which, you know, one has 95,000 approximately, one has maybe 69,000, maybe a little less. I don't know if you got to leave a buffer in there probably, just in case. But you know, there's definitely, you know, could get $150,000 out of that, you know, to apply towards Hibbard at least. Which then we can move on. I think we can move on a little bit to the general obligation note, which is pending. We talked about the mill and overlay. We're gonna have to go back to the drawing board with Dave and Jason and staff. They'll come back with maybe a different number, just to see where we end up. And then we have some of the other items here. I don't know if you guys just want to go through items one by one. We have first up, I have the police department air conditioner unit replacements and door, and police department radio replacements. I don't, you know, totaling a, you know, just about, you know, $66,000. So that would be the first item up to discuss. Chief Weiner is here if you have questions for him about it. I don't know where. Again, I feel like we're kind of in a with the other funds. We might be able to use some things, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know where that would fall. I know that they need the radios, you know, sooner rather than later for next year. So, have the floor open to you guys if you have questions for Dennis or Mike. Go ahead.
Under air conditioner unit replacements and door, it just says 9550, and it says 3550 for 2019 unit price. Is that for the air conditioner, the 3550? So there's 2 of those units that are due, and then the remainder of that would be for the door. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's 3 units and one was replaced this year, and that's where that number came from. One flat out died. It was
Okay.
replaced this year, so
Okay.
that's where the cost for the remaining 2 were.
There you go.
One was replaced this year because it died. There's 3 total, so there's 2 remaining, and that's where the base estimated cost came for replacing the other 2.
The other 2 units the same age as the one that just died?
Yes.
Okay, all right, then it's probably due to be replaced, or both of them are. And then the door is the back door?
The back door, I'm guessing it's the original door that was with the building. It's metal. In the winter, when it gets cold, it swells. We can't get it open sometimes to get in the back. Sometimes you can't get out. I have a DPW come and do some grinding in the door frame of the metal. It works sometimes for a little bit, and then it's back swelling again. And right now, with the cold weather coming and going, we gotta struggle to get out, and then when the door closes, we gotta push it hard to close it. So it's needs to go.
Okay. Have you received bids on any of that stuff?
We got a bid early last year on it. It was right around $1,600.
Okay, for the door
I haven't gotten
replacement.
anything recent, correct?
Okay.
And we projected $2,000, I think, was the amount that we threw in the mix for all of this,
Okay.
estimated for the door.
All right.
So Dennis, on that topic with the door, I think it's only $1,600 to $2,000. That's something that we could get in the budget,
For 19 or for 20?
either. Probably not 19, right? Or
Probably not 19.
But
We're
20, I mean, you're $1,600. You know where you're probably going to end up. You know, this year you had an excess of $80,000 left over of carryover funds from multiple lines. So, seems to me you probably could squeeze a door in there somewhere. I don't want to borrow for 10 years for a $1,600 door.
right, and
You know,
I
I
understand.
mean-
And it's also hard for me, standing here now to maybe commit some 2020 money, and then the end of the year, I'm coming in looking for something else. So it's
Well,
It's
that's
kind of one of those. We could potentially do it somehow that way, yes.
Well, however, maybe it's paid with disposal of fixed assets. I don't know. I'm just saying, maybe not borrowing for it. Maybe that might. This isn't maybe not even you have to answer to. I mean, this is, $1,600 doors was put in our
Yep.
borrowing for 10 years. So, we're gonna have questions like that, and that was put in by staff. So, air conditioner units, they'll last 10 years. That makes more sense to me. Larger purchases. So, the radios, you got a proposal. Is that the actual bid? 56, 276, 37.
The actual bid is in two different parts. One is for the radios, the squad radios, the portables, the programming, and a base station. And then there's another bid from our equipment vendor for the siren controllers that are needed with those, and then for the installs of the radio. We're having done by our equipment installer and not the radio vendor.
And that all rolls under the 56, 300.
Correct, absolutely. That encompasses everything.
All right, and the life of a radio is how long?
8 to 10 years.
Any questions on the police items? Any thoughts about the door? I mean,
I think when we get to the bottom of this list and try to get a number as far as what we're comfortable borrowing, I think we need to, as David's going to be looking at with the mill and overlay, start looking at the funds that we haven't used and start applying those to certain areas to reduce the amount of borrowing, like the asset disposal fund, etc. There's going to be a small amount of money in our capital projects fund that we levied for this year that we should be spending down on the smaller projects, in my opinion. Take the levied dollars and offset the borrowing.
Okay.
But I think that's how we can maybe help get rid of the funds that we have right now before we borrow more. Clearly, if we're buying a dump truck, we're going to be borrowing for that. That's not something that we can levy for in 1 year. But I think we can kind of take care of that at the end of the conversation to make sure we're offsetting with the funds we have.
okay. So as far as this list, I mean, how do you want to approach the list that year? I mean, obviously everything, is going to add up to at the bottom. So, I mean, do we go through the list and say this sounds like a good idea or it doesn't, or do we come up with a number and then pick things that can fit into that number after Dave compiles that? Because there's some things on here, with, like, for example, the phone system. This year's the first time I heard we needed a phone system. It's $40,000. I don't know how bad we need a phone system. When I call up here, they answer. I don't know what technology has changed that the phone needs to be replaced. Kim, go ahead.
Sure. Our phone system will no longer be supported by AT&T starting in spring 2020.
Okay.
So we had originally in the list of projects or potential list of projects, we had a much higher dollar amount. Talking with Kaylin, we dropped that back to the $40,000 range. It might even come in a little bit less. But talking to her, she was comfortable or leaving it at around that $40,000 mark.
And what is $40,000 getting you?
Everything.
What is that? Give
The
me a
entire
few
phone
examples.
system, all of the connections between buildings, all the brains. We have a Centrex system right now, and I'm not going to say that I am a technician and completely understand how all of it works, because I am not techie in any way, shape, or form. But we would have to replace that entire system. We're hoping that we can use the existing hardware, the phones themselves, but it's the mechanisms behind the phones that we need to replace.
Have we looked at other phone providers?
Yes, I mean, yeah, we are, and that's why the cost has kind of come down. Initially, in some of the early versions that I shared with you, I think we were in the $60,000 range, 50 to 60, and now it's down to about 40. It may even come in less. I mean, Kaylin is working on it and has been talking to a couple different vendors to see what we can do.
So if we don't replace the phone system in January, or what month?
In spring,
In spring of 2020, no one can call City Hall or any city building or any city office?
I can't, that's my understanding, is that the phone system just isn't going to be working.
Do we have anything in writing from them that says that, from AT&T? I mean, that no one, I have AT&T at my house, and then
I don't know, I mean, how long,
tell
Pat, how old is our phone system? Because it was, well, I don't have the history on it. I've been here 9, so. Okay. I guess, Andy, that'd be a question I'd have to get more information for you on.
Okay, and as other, you said they did look at other options for telephone?
Yeah,
Like-
she's exploring different versions or different providers that might give us the same services but for a better cost.
Trina?
Oh, yeah, like Andy, I'm just kind of wondering what the $40,000 includes. I'm guessing they're not rewiring all the buildings. Are they just putting in almost little Wi-Fi type boxes in buildings like you would at a home? Any idea?
I
what
can't
that
answer. I
includes?
really can't answer that question. So I think I would prefer to just get you better information, and then we can
Thank
talk
you.
more from there.
Mike, go ahead.
I don't want to misspeak here, but I believe the intent here is to upgrade from the traditional phone system that's hooked up to copper wires to go to a VoIP system. That's what I think this is.
Through AT&T or through
No, with
someone
a
else?
different provider. Yep. Because AT&T's not going to be supporting that infrastructure any longer. And technically, we own the infrastructure in the building. I think when we had a problem a couple weeks ago or a month ago where the phone line was down, there was because of the wires in the building. So, but I think this is to transfer into a VoIP system. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I was going to ask if we had considered VoIP, so that's good information.
I think that one of the vendors they're talking to is OnTech as well. So I think they probably identified some other deficiencies in the building besides our servers. So
Yeah, well, and that also just answered another one of my questions. Have we worked with OnTech? So appreciate that. Yeah, more information on that would be helpful. I mean, borrowing $40,000 for, it's just listed as phone system. It brings questions to mind. So, excuse me. So I guess I don't know, City Hall. Anybody have any questions on that? That's whole bunch of stuff on there. I remember discussing this one a few times. I guess I don't know how important getting this all done at one time, or if it's one of those things we can plan over time. I don't know. You sure can.
I would suggest that if you decided to leave money in the bond for City Hall, we have water problems in the basement. And part of that is because the gutters and downspouts are starting to rust out and leak in certain places. We need to do some cement repair work along some of the foundations. And those are probably two things that are pretty important because the water actually leaks down into the server, the room where our server is. So right now we have sump pumps and dehumidifiers and things going, but I think the idea was when we walked the building and got the list of items, there were a few that were kind of priorities, which, like I said, the gutters, the cement work, probably are the two big points there. The back door is kind of similar to the PD's. It's in really bad shape and it does swell, so you have to kick it to get in. And the bottom is starting to rust out, so that actually when you stand there, you can actually see out the back door now. So that is another higher priority, but not necessarily at the top of the list.
The $127,000, where are the quotes for that? Where did you come up with that number?
That was really from just calling around to different vendors and talking to them about the work that was needed to be done.
But no actual quotes?
No actual quotes, no.
Well,
It was just,
So the problem I have with this is if we borrow $127,000 and your project is, $40,000, you borrowed extra money for something that you're not gonna use it for, and you're gonna use it for something else,
well,
which is,
if the gutters and downspouts were quoted at 40,000, certainly the next thing would be then to do the cement repair work. And then if that can be done, do the back door, or replace one of the air conditioners, or do the tuck pointing on the building, or.
but that's my point, is you don't know the price. 127,000 is just a random number that you've come up with by calling around without actually getting quotes.
Okay.
It could be
So-
$200,000,
Right,
or it could be $80,000 for everything.
so then just take this off the list?
I didn't say that.
I mean, I'm just
No.
trying to get under,
I don't want to borrow money for something that we don't know we're going to use specifically for that purpose, or we're not borrowing enough and we have to come up with more money somewhere else. So
Alright.
if you had some type of quote, it does, I have nothing in writing. I wanna, when I borrow something for 10 years, you probably wanna see what it
Okay.
looks,
Alright.
what you got.
we have until, the borrowing deadline, gives us time to meet again and certainly to get quotes. So, I can work on that, do what I can.
And then again, it's like what Dave was saying before, we have, if we have a better refined number, we know that you need, okay, the city all definitely needs $127,000, you can look and see where that money is, and maybe you don't have to borrow $127,000, and you have the door, which I just told Chief Weiner, why are you borrowing 10 years on a door? For the door. That's an expensive door. Okay. So, okay, thank you, Kim, for that. Any question? Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's all right.
Trina was first.
Yeah, I guess the 127 on the likely repairs doesn't bother me so much. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like 200,000, I guess, or more. I guess my question is what we would be willing to put in the most dire repairs for the building, and just have a number in mind. Although I would like to see a couple of quotes, but I know the tuck pointing and cement repair will just add up like crazy, but are so needed. And gotta get downspouts, gotta get gutters. The gutters and downspouts themselves probably aren't that expensive, but getting up there and installing them
Oh, yeah.
will probably be the kicker in that price. So yeah, I would like to see some quotes, even if they're not the companies we ultimately decide on, just to get a better number in our minds. But the number there, it's probable, and it's probable on the low end for what's needed, unfortunately.
Maybe not. That's my point. I have no idea. Ed, you had your light on?
Dave, did you want to jump in, Dave? And then I'll.
Well, I'll
No.
decide who talks next, if you don't
Uh,
mind.
I-
Ed, go ahead.
If he was going to cover my point, I wouldn't have to use up oxygen.
I like
who-
hearing from you.
Who's, I guess I struggle with who's getting, who should be tasked with getting estimates. And I appreciate the having, Kim, you volunteering to go and get estimates, but I'm wondering if Kim is the best person to get estimates on the city hall, and if the senior center director is the best person to get estimates on roof repairs and things like that. I offer, so I'm going to ask Dave, what, in a town this size, is that how business is done, that we have department heads going out and getting estimates on things, or do we have either an administrator or a DPW director or an engineer, somebody who's tasked with gathering estimates? Because I feel like we're asking some of these people to do something outside their area of expertise and possibly shorting ourselves or adding extra burden to them.
Yes. I think that Kim is doing the best she can to provide some information. They've been here long enough to see that there is a need, and eventually, if you want to maintain your building, and is this on the historic register with the state? So that takes it to a little higher level as far as a contractor that works on historic buildings. It's just a higher skill level to do that work and do it well. And I think that it should be put together by the engineer or the public works director. When you're looking at the buildings.
I think many of these
So-
estimates that we look for from my time on the council, we're tasking people to secure estimates on things that I don't necessarily feel are within their bailiwick. And I'm wondering if we can, as a council and as a city, develop a policy that we have a more centralized system of getting estimates, whether it's for city hall repairs or senior center repairs or roofs or other things. I'm wondering if it's our best use of personnel to have arguably unqualified people going outside their zone and getting estimates. And I'm just wondering what we can do to maybe centralize this and who the right person would be. And that's where I'm asking your expertise.
Sure. Do you want me to work on that?
I can't direct you
Okay.
that, but as a council member, I suggest that we would ask you to work on that, yes.
Mike?
We've had this conversation before. I think it is centralizing these issues a little bit more, so there's more consistency. I think it's frustrating for the council when we have funded certain projects, the money doesn't get expended. It's there the next year and the next year, and the project's not done. And I think having someone that's dealing with facilities in general, maintenance, City Hall, for example, there's a number here, but I think ultimately we should know that there should be a number that comes up every 3 years or 5 years, because we know that it's going to cost so much to maintain this building over the next 10, 20, 30 years. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit during the roadmap when they started looking at facilities. So maybe it's not so much about the items, it's about here's how much you have to spend every 10 years to maintain a historic building. Same with the other buildings that may not be historic. There's just a cost to maintaining them. But I would love to see this more centralized, or start building a plan on how to do that. I think you also get one person that's dealing with a lot of contractors, and you have better communication, and you can start building a Rolodex, so to speak, of contacts, rather than starting from scratch for every project. So
That's what I'm looking for. Sorry to jump in on you, Trina,
that's good.
but that's what I'm looking for, is one centralized person. If something happens to a building or a structure that we need an estimate, that we don't have, this person do it because that's their department, and that person do it because that's their department. But yes, the Rolodex concept, and somebody who has the knowledge on how to get estimates and who to call and all that stuff, I'd really like to see that.
Thank you, Ed. I agree. And again, I just wanted, before I get to you,
That's all right.
Trina, I just want to point out, I think that all of these things probably need to be done, but I have no idea where this list came from. If someone just walked around City Hall and said, oh, that window, that's pretty old, we should probably get new windows, or there's no report of any condition that we've ever seen that I know of that these things are wrong in City Hall. Those are the kind of things that help the city council make decisions on what's more important and when things could fail, what their life expectancy, what they are. So that was my point. And like I said, it may cost $80,000, it may cost $200,000 or more. We have no idea. So things like that, and I 100% agree with what Ed said and the mayor said. Trina, go ahead.
Oh, sure. I guess for the individual, I would most likely shovel it upon our Public Works Director. But, that's a future discussion, and the new city administrator would need heavy involvement in the decision. I do like for the department heads to be the one spearheading the need for the repairs, just that they're the ones using the buildings the most and probably the most aware for the ones to be able to start to collect the issues. But yeah, I would like for there to be a go-to person for trying to solve the problems and locate personnel that could do the repairs and be able to develop the relationships. Yeah, definitely. That wasn't very.
No, it's exactly what everyone is thinking up here, so it's perfect. Do you have anything to add? Okay. Anything else on City Hall and phone systems or anything like that? Okay. So Public Works, Zach back there. I'm gonna just throw this out there right now. Something not on the list that's been on the list for forever is that bucket truck. And before the last time you came in here and gave your speech about the bucket truck, I didn't. No one had ever actually given us like why you need it and what it's going to be used for. It just was a thing on the list. Now it's not on the list, but now I want it, and I think you need it.
Well, I'm glad I could sway you and bring you the facts that you needed to make that decision. After I brought that information to you, it was brought to me that if we wanted to buy a water and lights bucket truck, we would not be able to purchase that until 2021. So
Okay.
that was a great opportunity that was just not lining up the way I had hoped for it. Unfortunately, that information was brought a little late. And at that number, we could surely find another bucket truck. I would not purchase another bucket truck for that price tag on a 10-year bond, and with good faith knowing it would go 10 years. Knowing Water and Lights truck, having my crew who's dealt with it for the last 10 plus, or however long they've had it, they know it's a good truck. They know if there are concerns, they know where they are, and they were confident in that purchase. And now we don't have that, so we looked to reallocate, whereas you'll see the sweeper money was bumped up. Our street sweeper, I think I mentioned that in a previous conversation, for every hour it's out, it's in the shop for 2 hours, and that dollar amount that I got quotes for a different sweeper was pretty much going to buy us the same thing we had, and it was not going to be. And again, I wasn't going to feel confident purchasing a street sweeper for the original 95,000 earmarked and be confident that it would last for 10 years. So that's where, we made a decision for a street sweeper because without a street sweeper we have nothing, whereas we are in the same boat of borrowing Water and Lights. We're also continuing to gather that data to prove the use for the bucket truck, starting with our pruning season here, hopefully as soon as next week or the week after. My staff will be recording every time they're using the bucket truck and recording the hours on it, just the way they record their duties in a day, so we can have some good hard numbers on that and actually see what we're looking at there. So that's where that kind of all
Okay.
came from.
Thank you. I was sad to see that it wasn't on here because you finally had convinced me that it was important and you needed it. So,
Well, I'll come back with stronger numbers to convince you I need a brand new one.
okay. The one thing I will note, the 123, 150 for the end loader, we already have the end loader. That's something that has to stay in here. So there's really nothing to question there, unless there's another way to fund it. But I don't see that. I don't remember seeing the salt building roof thing on there before, but
I
maybe
believe it
missed
was. Yeah, I believe it was.
Can you just remind me?
Yeah, so our cell building is failing. It's along with everything else down there. It's old, very old, and years and years of salt being pushed into it with the loader. The back wall has started to give back. I've actually had a structural engineer on site for other things and asked him to look at it. He said structurally it looks fine. It just needs to be kind of pulled back in and slap a new roof on it so that the DNR doesn't tell us we can't use it as a salt storage anymore, because without keeping the rain and elements away from the salt, they will disallow that. So really this is, this is one of those things that go to your conversation of the money we're investing in our buildings and our 10 years, and just to compile on all that, this is a decision that at some point has to be made down the road of how long is Public Works going to be in that facility. How many Band-Aids are we going to put on structures before we're not spending our money wisely down there? Unfortunately, this is one we have to spend to continue operations to have salt storage, but I just want to bring that to light. That this is one of those conversations that's going to bring that to light over and over.
For some reason, I thought you stored the salt at the recycling center in that one metal building.
If we have overflow or extra, we'll put a little bit down there, but that's
Okay.
very, from my understanding, it doesn't happen very often. We haven't done it all this year.
Okay. That's where I thought it was, and then when you said how long would we be at that site, I was like, oh, maybe it's down here. So it is down there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. It's a old wooden building, and the doors open once a year, because once they're open, they're that difficult to close again that we just do it once.
Gotcha. Okay, I don't. And then I don't know. You guys have questions for Zach on any of his items? Zach, if you have anything to add on the other items, either the dump truck or the street sweeper.
Nope. That's
Mike.
What does the $175,000 version of a street sweeper look like? Is it used or is it new?
That's still used.
Okay.
Brand new is about $250. But a much better version, a much updated version. The staff has had the opportunity to test drive a few newer ones, and so of course that gets some big smiles and hopes. I can send you some of the quotes we've received to give you an idea of what that looks like. But essentially, I can tell you it's just a much better version of what we're doing right now.
Okay. And we would be able to auction off the old one. It's probably got still some value. I mean, if
Some, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that it's got a lot, but there's something. It would definitely go to auction and sell.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Zach.
Anything else for Zach? I mean, are we comfortable with his needs for Public Works? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Zach. Are you staying up for the aquatic center, or I don't see Amy Jo?
I think Amy Jo had updated Dave on that. So,
Okay.
but but if you have other questions, I'm happy to speak after Dave.
All right. Dave, what do you got for the aquatic center? We have the slide and decking and the leak. And I know we had, some of us got an email, I don't know if everyone did, but there was.
Polytech, the good news is it's a little less than what was estimated. I think the total between the two is 35.7. And she felt real good about that. Basically, the proposal would be to replace the entire start tub and crack fill the slide and paint everything. And Polytech, the second contractor involved in this, would be to do the repairs on the deck, cement the decking. I guess, this needs attention. And with regard to the leak, for the first time I've been here, she seemed a little more confident that they're narrowing down, identifying where that leak is, and she said that she would have a report for the council next week, for the next meeting.
Okay.
And I understand that this needs to be moved along in a timely way so that you can get the work done in the spring and get it done before the season starts. So that's why we put it on here,
Okay.
put it on
Mike?
your agenda.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to repeat what Dave said. I think that the reason we have it on the agenda is because this Polytech estimate came in kind of just recently, way lower than what was expected. And so I think Amy Jo wants the ability to be able to get an agreement with them, get them booked for the spring, because that's always a challenge, is getting the work done in time for the pool opening. I was surprised to see these prices as well, but the good news is there's 45 on the list, and these two bids come to $36,000. That's $9,000 we can X off if we want to. So I think that's good news.
Katie?
I just was talking with Amy Jo yesterday. They said they're pretty much 90% sure that they know where that leak is. So, and she has another company coming out to do some further investigations just to totally confirm that. So I just wanted to share that with council. So that seems to be good news.
Yeah.
Narrowing and
Then by narrowing it down, we can narrow down the $100,000 amount or make it more.
Right.
Whatever it is. But that's that's what I was gonna mention. This is another hard one. I know we gotta, I mentioned before, we want to borrow money for something we don't have quotes for. But this is another one we would have to do that. So hopefully by the time we get to that point, we can, Amy will have an idea. So, okay. Anything else? Cool. We good? Okay. Seeing none. Okay, look forward to. Go ahead, Mike.
Or do we agree that we're going to reduce that number from 45 to
Oh.
36,000? I think we should. I mean, I know that we built contingency into a lot of these projects, but I think now that we've got firm contracts in front of us that we can kind of approve, I'd rather pull the $9,000 out, and if we need a few $1,000s at the end of the day, we can get that from the undesignated fund or find some other way to fund that rather than borrowing $9,000 extra. That's my preference anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Next up, we have the senior center roof, windows, gutters, and chimney. And I believe we had something at our desk today. We got in. I'll admit I have not had a chance to look at it. But we have senior center director Kim Lang here. If you have questions, there's a history of the roof there's some listing of the current issues. And I apologize, I had not had a chance to read this yet, so bear with me. Kim's up there if you have something you want to add right away.
Yeah, just really quickly, when we originally talked about the roofing system, as we all know, it's a horrible flat roof. The original amount that we had quoted, I got clarification on that, and that's actually a new roofing system. It doesn't take it up to a more traditional type of roof. It does, however, put a new roof on it that makes it less flat. That's my best description of it, but it's a different roofing system that would be supported by the foundation and the engineering of our current building. But that's a $61,000 investment just for that. If that's not something that we want to invest in because of the age and the structure of that building, I do now have 2 quotes from 2 different companies we've worked with in the past, giving us other options. Both companies said that the roof, it does need some emergency repairs for certain. Some things are leaking and cracking, and they're different from the things we repaired 2 years ago. But they both say with that repair and maintenance program, we should be able to extend the existing membrane for another 5 to 7 years. We found, if you look at the history, that about, even with the new membrane that we put on in, I can't off the top of my head remember what year, every 3 years since then, we've done some emergency maintenance and repair. So do you decide to spend around $22,000 to put a new membrane on, which will give us up to 10 years, or do we keep patching every 3 years for about $8,000 to $10,000? And that's what the quotes that I got from these two organizations kind of tell you. The main concern, I think, from my standpoint is there are some spots up there that are pooling, and those pooling areas are around the heating and cooling systems. And in order to really do a good job of getting that water away from those systems, it would be an investigation of why they're pooling there. There is some indentations, and they show you that in some of the pictures. But that would be another additional expense on top of either of these, because that might have something to do more with the structure of the roof underneath as opposed to the actual membrane that's on it. So I guess it's up to you to decide, where you want to go with the roof, how long-term of an investment, how big of an investment. But they gave me several really good options and price ranges, so you can decide if this is something that you want to put into this sort of borrowing, or if we look at something else for.
Where's
For
the
that.
$61,000?
That quote, they didn't give me a new updated copy for, so I don't have that for you. They were going to get that to me. They just haven't gotten that. Because it is a different system, so I don't have anything else to compare it to give you a range of prices. So they were going to work on that for me, but I haven't gotten that yet. They also didn't feel that it was necessarily an investment we had to make. They felt that, both companies felt that the condition of the roof was fair enough that if we maintain it for a while, we'd get our money's worth out of it without doing that big of a investment.
Don't recall what the 2050 report said, a potential someday maybe replacing the senior center. I don't know what year that was. Do you recall does anybody recall what that was? Was it more than 10 years? Okay. And I don't know. I would go ahead, Trina.
Oh, I don't know, I guess I'm leaning towards just a 10-year membrane. And I'm wondering, is there any kind of sunk-in little drainage system that can be added to the area where it's pooling? Where a little bit of the roof would be cut out, and then it, you would just expect it to pool, and it can just go down.
Yeah, and the way that the structure of the roof is, I don't know that they could necessarily do that, but they do have some ideas. It really depends on them looking underneath the roof to see what's really under there. When they inspect the roof, they come up on the roof and they look at the surface, because that's really what their job is. So they had suggested too that we have, either them or some other organization look underneath and see what's really happening in there. Nobody's gone underneath, because you have to come out of the ceiling and that kind of thing. So that's not what they looked at, but that is a potential of something that we could also do in addition. I don't know what that would cost if we find what we'll find down there. They seem to feel if we could, there are a couple of options that they could do up on the roof to help at least get the water off a little quicker. It wouldn't drain it, but it would. Right now, it just sits there because there's no place else for it to go, because it's lower than the surface of the roof. But they suggested there were some options, things that they could do if we put a new membrane on to help that situation. But if we wanted to repair it permanently, that would be another situation.
And then, how are you describing the super expensive option with the tinted type roof?
Yeah, and I do have
might
pictures
as well
of
throw
that
out
with
there.
me, even though I don't have but it looks, I don't know what it's called, but it's a type of metal material that's put on the roof, but it's tented enough so that, not an extreme, you don't have a whole roofing system, but the system does tent it enough so that it's not flat and it pulls the water away. And I have more information about it, but I am still waiting for an updated quote and to see if there's another organization that has a similar product that they could offer us so I could compare, because it's a lot of money. But I'm still waiting to hear back and find out more about that.
I think I'm just concerned about throwing a bunch of money into this building. I think you bring up a valid point about, do we do emergency repairs or should we really just do this membrane to last 10 years? But in my mind, I don't want that to be the senior center for 10 years, regardless of whether that's going to work or not. But I guess me with along, I don't want to stick a ton of money into this building, and I would hope that we can figure something out.
Yeah, this is a tough one because, I mean, we have a big list of things that would be awesome for us to have built, but then we have reality where you have to pay for it, and I honestly don't see that happening in 10 years or even 15 years, or who knows how long. We've seen a report. We still have the control to change the order of things that may or may not happen in the next 30 years. But like Zach's mentioned, the DPW may or may not be down there. We've seen the price tag on that. We have a fire station. We've seen the price tags on that. So I worry about that becoming a reality. And if you're spending $23,000 now for 10 years, and that lasts for 10 years, and you're still there for another 10 years, are you going to be spending $8,000 every 2 or 3 years to fix problems, or do we just solve the problem now with spending more money up front? I mean, it's hard to predict the future, so I just, that building is used for so many other things than just seniors, so voting, every meetings, so I think it may be worth the investment, but it's tough. Go ahead, Kate.
I think, I think you're absolutely right. In reality, it's difficult when you obviously have to pay for things. In my mind, this building is not very suitable for most of the activities that take place there. And I would hope if we could somehow juggle things around, whether we build one building or two buildings or no buildings, hopefully we can find a solution, maybe a shifting of where the senior center is, or, I think that that's a different conversation. But my point is, I don't think that we should throw a bunch of money at this building.
What's a bunch of money?
Even a 10-year roof, I think, would be, because
What if the roof caves
Kim,
in when people are in it?
but the 10-year option of the membrane is not, if the roof
if
is
leaking-
caving in,
if
if the roof is caving in, the membrane is not going to prevent that from happening. A 10-year membrane is not going to fix the roof from caving in. If the roof is caving in, then we have a genuine problem.
Plus, just to point out that the last membrane we had on, which was, it's on the list there, but I can't remember the year that we put it on. Within 3 years, there was cracking that caused water to get into the building, so we had to do patching. So, they warranty it for 10 years, but when we looked into that warranty, we'd already patched it once, and so the warranty was no longer valid.
That was going to be my next question, too,
yeah.
because you said you didn't
And-
remember when that was, which is fine. But
Yeah, and it's on the
every
list
3
of the
years.
history of when we put the membrane on.
Yeah.
But from what I can tell, about every 3 years since then, we've had to repair some cracking. and there's some thinning that they've reported when they go up and inspect the membrane that's up there now. Now, whether or not that causes more leaks, it may or it may not. It depends on the weather. It depends on how much rain we get, how much heat we get, that kind of thing. So it is kind of a juggling act to figure it out.
Like I said, it's tough. I don't know.
I
don't
would
know
like
the
to
right
see
answer.
if they recommended to have somebody go look at the underside. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
what
and I
council's feelings are in
certainly
that. I
could,
mean,
I can,
we're gonna
I can
look
certainly
into
make some
replacing 'em.
calls and see if someone can go up there and see what's going on under there, because we really haven't.
I just think if we're gonna look at replacing a membrane
Sure.
that may or may not last 10 years, if you have all that other damage going on
Yep.
underneath, that'd be useful to know.
I
You
agree
bet.
with
I can work on that.
that. Ed?
I guess this is where I circle back to my point. I appreciate all you're doing and that you can make some calls, et cetera, but we have an engineer that we pay money to, and we have Zach. I'm not sure whether this falls in his area of expertise, but the third paragraph says, and causing, possibility of causing roof failure due to the weight of the units. If something happens, I don't want to say, well, we left it to the senior center director to figure out the best answer for this. I would really like to see us elevate this above your pay grade to somebody with some engineering background to be giving us recommendations on this. I appreciate your work and what you're doing, but I really am concerned that we're leaving this in your hands to be making the call, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Thanks, Ed. Mike?
I mirror your comments as well. I think this is an example where we need to have more of a, I don't know, we need to get more information collected to make a decision to say this is reacting to a problem to get us through another year, or we've decided that it's going to cost us $300,000 to solve this problem to keep this building, or we're going to look at something different. And I think going through the roadmap project, this is just a building that I just think we've outgrown, and I think the site is appropriate for something new. But again, that could be 10 years away. Might not be here. There's a lot of language that are used in these quotes, and I'm not trying to speak like a professional, but I know enough to get myself in trouble. But one of these is essentially pressure washing the roof and recoating it for $20,000. That's not going to change anything with a membrane. When they talk about replacing a 10-year membrane, the membrane could last 50 years if there's no holes in it. The problem is you put it on the roof, you put holes in it, and you put air conditioning units on it. You can have the same problem with a brand new membrane 2 weeks after the new membrane goes on. I think that's what we have to look at, is we're not going to improve the situation that we have there by spending, in my opinion, even $50,000 or $60,000. We could have a problem a couple years after that. The warranty is on the membrane itself, but then there's the installation and all the holes that you have to put in the membrane. I don't like the idea of putting HVAC units on a roof. I don't think it should be done in Wisconsin, but that's the building we have right now. So I don't have an answer right now, but I think we need to get more information and look at this to try to make a decision. I'm kind of leaning more towards let's spend $5,000 and kind of patch up what we need to get us through, but also don't want to ignore a significant potential safety concern if there is structural damage that we're just patching over year after year. So again, I think having someone that can really get the right resources to that building is what I'm talking about tonight mostly. So, but thanks for the work you did.
Trina?
Oh, yeah, I guess, looking at the pictures, the main concern is looking at the ponding by the, can't even tell quite what kind of, that's just a regular air conditioner. And then the guess is it might be like underling collapsed insulation. I can't imagine the insulation quite being what's sinking, but I would really want to figure out what's going on in that exact area before we cover anything up. So I'm not exactly sure who needs to come out, but that's probably my number one concern for the roof. Oh.
All right, so from Dave, from the staff side, is this something that you guys can dig a little deeper on and find someone that can come out and look underneath and give us a better idea? what we're looking at here?
Yes, but we may need some funds to get the expertise to do it. So possibly, I would have the time to bring something to the council on the 17th, but I'm thinking that if we're not holding up the Hibbard project, that we revisit the capital projects borrowing after the first of the year. They give us more time to prepare.
Is everyone okay with that?
Specific timeline is on that. We've got time to refine this list. Yeah.
Staff is shaking their head yes, so.
Good.
Okay. I think that'll be a tremendous help, and we can, it makes sense. I mean, we have a whole bunch of people that aren't experts up here, and we have people out there that aren't experts that we're trying to piece this all
Sure.
together, and I just think we need a little more help and a little more due diligence before we make a final decision on that and many of the other things we've discussed so far.
Well, I'll take the lead on this and work with the staff and the engineer and put some things together for our next discussion. And I'm suggesting that we probably need January time frame to do that.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Trina, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering what engineer you're thinking of. Were you thinking of?
Oh, the city engineer, I'm going to talk with him
Jason?
about it. See if his firm has that expertise, or we can refer me to somebody that could look at this. You're talking about this roof. I was going through the scenario in Monona over the fire station. And we tasked an engineer to do an inspection of it, and the city council ended up approving, it was a flat roof. And this was the fire station in Monona. There was leaking, there's all kinds of problems going on, and icing up and that type of thing. And looked at all of these options, short-term, long-term, and they ended up voting to put in a pitched roof and just rebuilt over the top of it. And in that scenario, the commitment was that station's going to be there for a long time. We weren't contemplating a new station someplace. I've heard you talk about possibly this is getting beyond you're looking at another senior center building, but probably more long-term planning. So I guess I'm thinking that you need more than just a few year fix on this. But I think we need to have someone come in and look at that you trust and can have the expertise to someone that you're paying that isn't doing the work, that can look at it objectively and be answerable to you and give you these alternatives. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I agree. I like
But
that
we'll
idea.
probably need some funding from you to hire somebody to do that, just like you do with, when you hire Jason or what have you.
Okay. Any other questions on that topic, or really at all on this agenda item?
Oh, yeah, I guess I was just hoping for more or less a structural engineer that would just really be able to give us a good idea what's happening with the weights of the things up there. That's just what I'm most concerned about, just for
And
having
they'll
an
have,
eye
if I
on-
may, they'll have to have some experience with historic buildings as well. I'm thinking of the other work here for the city hall, too.
Okay, sorry. Anything else? Well, adjourn.
One last thing I wanted to, in the list here we're looking at with the potential note borrowing, in red at the bottom it says use of proceeds from surplus sales. I think what we've been talking about is finding the right funding for the right project, and it's $20,000 in there. I think if we're going to have a fair conversation, we need to have the all of the funds that are available to help offset the borrowing. I know that we have more than $20,000 in that fund, and I don't know how updated that is either. I know that Zach just put some stuff out for auction, or I don't know if it's gone out to auction, but it was approved for, et cetera, but to get that list up to date as well, so we are aware of what funds are available. Are we spending half of the entire amount, or 2/3? I don't know that, so
Are all the squads they've been,
I don't know if I've seen the.
have all the squads been auctioned and all the proceeds are put in this account and are at 26,000, or are we more?
Along that line, I guess, we don't want to borrow for a door for a police station. We have $26,000. I think it's easy math to say we draw that down and pay for the door, and then you're not borrowing, and this money isn't sitting there in the ether forever.
Yeah, and I think there are many things in here that we can identify that are definitely better use for the asset disposal fund, like the doors, the door. Zach, you want to come up? Yes.
Before you adjourn there, I was hoping we could touch on that last thing on your list, or the storm sewer question mark. I just wanted to bring to light, I received some updated information from the county today. They strongly underestimated what it was going to cost to redirect the water for this ditching project, because the DNR told them they have to have the water, they have to essentially dam the creek and redirect the water around the part under construction while it was being worked on, so that there wasn't erosion and sediment washout and all that good stuff. So that quote came in at $18,000. So the $10,000 project just turned into a $30,000 project. And with that, they quoted the rest of the park because there was interest in that. The county's portion of that was $65,000 to do, I'm going to call it the southern part of the park, but the larger stretch there is about 800 feet. And with that, you'd be obviously looking at a much longer project, and you'd be looking at about a month rental of those pumps for $40,000. So, with that, we could look at the conversation of continuing to do this small part of this project this year yet for $30,000, or we can look at borrowing or finding the money elsewhere to do the project in 2020, and do, if it's of interest, to do the entire project for 100, 115 would be a rough estimate there. That's very just off their numbers. Like I said, that was pretty disappointing to see that number come through when they were initially thinking it would be 5,000 or 6,000, and it came in at 18,000. Part of that is because of the time of year we've ran into, and they have to keep the pumps heated and things like that so they don't freeze up. But just wanted that to be updated.
Okay, Mike.
When you said the $65,000 roughly for the larger part of Fireman's Park, how far would that run up? Like, can you give me some idea of how much?
Yeah, so if where they put the new riprap in this year, kind of behind the side of the War Memorial, it would go from there to where our property hits the golf course. And from the maps that we have, which are pretty old maps, that ditch is not a straight line back to the golf course. It kind of jogs over to that service road by the school and then up and over from the maps we have. Some of that obviously we won't know until we dig in and find that route. But so just so you don't imagine a straight line creek, it would be kind of meandering through the park a little bit.
Sure. I'd love to continue on this project. My concern there is that access just to the football field, obviously that's going to change a lot of things, and we'll probably have to communicate with the school, formulate a plan.
Correct. And well, I don't think we would ever look to get rid of that access point right there. We'd obviously need to restructure it somehow, some way. Jason and I have kind of discussed on different options there. Part of that might even fall into if we were to get the MLS grant for the bike paths, things like that. Essentially put something in there where you could get foot traffic across, maybe even lawnmowers, UTVs for maintenance purposes.
Okay.
But that's definitely kept in mind that we'll have to have some sort of answer there as well, which would not be included in this cost.
Okay.
So this, we're looking at 100, 115 just for that. So now if we have to look into structures to cross the water and all that.
Sure. But the pricing is still more favorable than we had ever considered in the past, from my understanding.
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to I think we need to talk about a placeholder for stormwater for the bonding next year, something. I don't know for sure where we've identified the funding for the project potentially this year, that it came in a little bit more, if that's coming from the undesignated or we're gonna be reimbursing through, I have no idea. But clearly we need to do the project, and if you started it this fall, it's gotta be completed this fall, I'm assuming. They're not gonna stop halfway in, because the pumps are running, it sounds like.
Correct. Yeah, the pumps are, I mean, they're, you're damming it up and you're running those pumps 24/7 until the project's completed.
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's question marks, but we haven't really gotten any updates, so.
So as of now, I'm kind of thinking we're, unless I'm directed elsewhere, to hold off on this project unless we, I mean, if we're tripling the amount of this project for the fall, I don't know that we have the funds. Kim, I just made this noted to Kim this afternoon when I got these numbers, so we haven't looked into it very far, but this is, a project that has tripled in cost, and I don't think that's something we're gonna do, especially if there is serious interest in doing it again next year, rent the pumps again for $40,000.
Okay. All right.
It obviously brings up headaches in the spring when we have flooding issues and we've got a failing culvert, but it's something we might have to improvise.
Yeah.
Make do.
Yeah. One more time.
Right.
So what are you thinking here, Mike? Putting a dollar amount in,
Et cetera, et cetera. I think that it needs to make the list. I do. I don't think we've acted on much of that report that was done a couple of years ago, and if the pricing is favorable, I think it's something that needs to be considered in the next round of borrowing, so.
is this a number, like a solid number you could get, for just for our next conversation, for the borrowing?
Could be closer. I don't know that I could tell you how solid. I guess I have to look to Jason a little bit there. When we're talking about how fast we could pull together solid numbers for installing structures and everything that might go along with that, we might be looking. There's going to be.
We have until sometime in January, right? Is that what
It sounds like it. I mean, we can definitely get you something better than what we have now.
Okay.
I just don't want to tell you that I'm going to come back with a number that I'm 100% in.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I have some leeway there.
I think you were looking at February for going out to bid for the projects, Jason. So we don't necessarily need to bond before we've got the estimates, correct, Kim? So we've got some time there to firm numbers up, I think, but getting more of a comprehensive plan for not just the culvert or the ditching, but all the other things that go along with it, I think would be helpful. I think we've got time to look at that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Staff, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we adjourn? Anybody? Not seeing anything. Dave, you got anything? Okay. All right. Entertain any motions. Your motion to adjourn. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We are adjourned. We'll take a quick break, and we will come back with the special meeting of the regular city council. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I've got 8:14 PM here to call the special meeting of the Columbus Common Council to order for Tuesday, December 10th, 2019. If you could please take a roll call for us, Pat.
Johnson,
Here.
Reed. Here. Ryan,
Here.
Tylen is excused, Tome,
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
Gray is absent.
Thank you. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Next item then is to approve the agenda for the evening.
I'll make a motion to, I think we need to amend the agenda. Due to the last meeting, I don't believe items 3 or 4 will be discussed further tonight. So I'd make a motion to approve the agenda, an amended agenda, removing items 3 and 4.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a
Mayor?
second. Yep, Dave.
I asked the mayor if I could just give a brief report.
Sure. Oh, do you mind if we did that at the end of the meeting?
No, but you're approving the agenda, so I
Oh,
don't have a
oh, sure.
report on the agenda.
Okay, did you want to add that?
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to include a report from the interim city administrator at the end of the after number 2.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda to remove items number 3 and 4 and to add a report from the interim city administrator. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda's approved. Amended agenda is approved. Correspondence and communications. I don't see any citizens present this evening, unless Zach, do you want to be a citizen this evening? He does not. Okay. So move on to old business. We only have a few items this evening, just kind of matter of housekeeping to get these items taken care of before the end of the year, since we've only got one regular council meeting. So item number 1 under old business is consider and take action on the snow removal fees for sidewalks. We've discussed this at committee of the whole several times, and we've got this refined a bit more from the last conversation. What we're looking for approval on here is recommendation an approval for the updated fee for the sidewalk snow removal of $111.57 for the mobilization fee plus $1 linear foot of snow removed. To approve the notice that's going out to local residents to inform them of this, which is also in your packet. And then third, to decide the date that this policy will be put into effect. Any questions on this? I don't remember if we ever talked about a date at the last committee of the whole meeting or not. Zach? Hello.
Hey.
All right, so as far regarding a date, my recommended implementation date would be the 15th of January. That would give residents a week's notice after the water utility bill goes out on the 8th. So that would give them a couple days within that to confirm. That's kind of what I got from Water and Light to confirm that is indeed the case. Now, the 15th, I don't know if it matters to anyone or not as a Wednesday versus, beginning of the week, whatever. But just to say it, I mean, it'll snow any day, so it doesn't matter. As far as I'm concerned, the date doesn't matter with the day of the week. The 15th gives residents a week from when the date the utility bill goes out. They'll have notice of it, and I think that should cover all our bases.
Okay. Ed?
I think we should give them at least a couple of weeks' notice. I appreciate the 15th. I could see people saying that since this is such an increase in how much it would cost, that I think it's only fair to give them a little bit more notice. That's one recommendation. I do have some wordsmithing again on the draft notice, if we're ready for that.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead with the wordsmithing quick?
All right, I propose moving paragraph 3 to be the second paragraph. I just think it flows better by saying the reason why we're doing it and then the effect of not. Um, you know, the effect being the cost. I think the paragraphs, I think, make more sense and flow better if you would have paragraph 3 become paragraph number 2, and then the consequences of that. So that's my first swap. And then at the end of what now would become paragraph 2 that starts with safety of citizens, the appropriate measures at the very end, it says the appropriate measures will be taken. I think an explanation there, such as an e.g. example gratia, the city through the DPW will remove the snow. Give an example of what the appropriate measures are that will be taken. It's kind of open-ended without that. Or it can be i.e. it is that the city will, through the DPW, will remove the snow. That's one suggestion I would make. The other one is in what is now paragraph 3, or currently paragraph 2, hopefully paragraph 3, starts, in the event the city is forced to remove snow from, I would say, either the sidewalk abutting your property or a sidewalk abutting your property. I think we're missing a word in between from and sidewalk. That's the extent of my suggestions. Thank you.
Any comments on those edits that Ed's suggested? I agree with the flow, as you pointed that out. I just think that it reads better if you just flip those two around. And also just ending that paragraph number 2 with an example of what will happen. I'm fine with that. Anything else on that draft? Okay, Trina, you had a comment?
As far as the dates, I guess I would lean towards any time between January 25th and February 1st to make sure people have actually opened their bill to likely pay it and have a better chance of seeing it. I just don't want to expect people to open it that far ahead of time just in case. And then I guess my other thing is I just still find our mobilization fee much too expensive. I know we've seen all the justifications and the breakdown, but it's just too much for me.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Katie.
I just wanted to make a point that this isn't a bill, you know, we have to remember this is not a bill that we're sending to the community. This is something that should be taken care of anyway. And if whoever doesn't clean their sidewalk off would have been charged something previously, hopefully they're not using the DPW as, you know, a shovel removal service. And I would hope that, you know, that wouldn't be the case. But I would say 1 week should be fine. I don't know that if they're already relying on that. I think that by saying that they need more time is silly. In fact, when they should be removing the snow in the first place or making other arrangements to get it removed. I know it's a big jump, but if they were relying on that in the first place.
I think we maybe have to differentiate a little bit between someone who accidentally or is gone for the holidays. This is the first year this is going to happen. I generally leave the city for a week and try to treat my neighbors well before I leave so they can reciprocate, which doesn't always happen. So, I mean, if I had to pay this cost as well, it would be a bit shocking, but I'm not planning on ever having to pay this fee because I don't want to rely on the city DPW to have to clear my sidewalks. I think that's the overall intent of what we're doing here. I think being the first year, I would like to be a little bit more forgiving as far as implementation. We're going to have it in the utility bill. We can get it on the city website. We can get it on social media to get the news out to people so they're well aware. And I also think that the holidays plays a little bit into this as well, just to kind of get the word out. So I'd be willing to be a little bit more forgiving as well. Don't have a specific date. January 25th, you mentioned, I think. I'm okay with that. Don't know what day of the week it is. Don't care. But I think just doing something different. There will be people that will tell us that they were never notified, and we're going to make sure they are notified by giving that extra time. So You okay with that, Andy?
I have other questions.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Zach, do you have an idea how many times a year you have to actually go out and plow other people's sidewalks?
I do not have a very good history on that. From my understanding, it's pretty similar to the issues we have with grass ordinance. So that can be anywhere between 10 to 15. But there it's every 2 to 3 weeks. So really here we're talking 10 to 15 every snowfall possibly.
Okay. And then in the letter, it doesn't really mention how we got to this point, why they're getting the letter. You had mentioned before that this was a complaint. This would be a complaint-based system only.
Correct?
Correct. I think there should be some language in here that says your property's been identified, or that a complaint has been filed against your property for not completing your required maintenance under.
For this
Whatever.
letter?
Yeah.
This letter is going to all residents. Right?
This is the letter that's
Right.
going in the bill.
Utility
Oh,
bill.
okay. This isn't the letter that. Okay, I got you. Well, that helps that then. And then I agree with Zach. I think it should be. I'm sorry. I agree with Katie. I think this should be. This is part of your duty as a citizen. You need to clear your sidewalk. I think the January 15th was fine, as Zach said. I'm willing to say January 25th, I suppose, if that's what it's going to be. And I think the fee is fine. I think as a city, we shouldn't be losing money on people that aren't keeping up with their responsibilities, whether that's because it snowed and you're out of town and you didn't look at the 10-day weather forecast, say, hey, there could be some snow. And then as far as the holidays go, it's January 25th. The holidays are over, unless you really go all out on Groundhog's Day. So, I mean, I think, sorry, to sum this up, I think the fee is fine, the linear foot is fine, and, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know if you need to explain what a linear foot is. Some people might confuse that with a square foot. So, I don't know, just something to think about.
I guess if maybe that's something that's explained further on Facebook.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe we
It's
can
the
do a
website.
video for the under the clock tower or something
Yeah.
like that.
Right?
Yes.
All right, that was all I got. Thanks.
Okay, so my understanding at this point, I think we've got some consensus anyway, except Trina apparently doesn't maybe understand or agree with the ultimate mobilization fee. We're going to have to try to form something into a motion here, and that there have been a few requested edits to the notice that's going out to the residents. I think you've absorbed those, Zach.
Correct.
And that hopefully January 25th would be a reasonable compromise to implement the policy.
Mayor, would you want this in 3 motions or 1 motion?
Should we do it can we do it 3 separate if we only have 1 agenda item or not? Can we do that?
Certainly.
Okay, then it's more clear, I think, as a matter of record. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
way, if Trina wants to
Sure.
vote no,
Sure.
then at least but she agrees with the letter and agrees with the date, then
Sure.
it's not like a blanket no vote. And
Sure.
yeah, okay,
Good point.
By the way, the
so-
25th is a Saturday.
Okay.
perfect. Everyone will be home in case it snows. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the sidewalk fee for snow removal of $111.57 for the mobilization fee plus $1 per linear foot of snow removed.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the new snow removal fees of $111.57 mobilization fee plus $1 linear foot of snow removed. Any further discussion on that? If there's no discussion, can we please take a roll call, Pat?
Reed,
Nay.
Ryan,
Aye.
Traxler,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right. Then we would need action on the, to approve the notice to the residents.
I make a motion that we approve the draft notice to residents regarding sidewalk snow removal fee increases as amended.
We have a motion and a second to approve the notice of increase of snow removal fees to residents as amended. Any further discussion on that? If there's no further
I
discussion.
guess I would
Yep.
encourage us to get this to the citizens via social media sooner than the water bill, and have the water bill be the last method of notification, if at all possible, as a way of, giving people as much heads up as possible. Using this verbiage,
Sure. Good point. I think everybody agrees with that. Get the word out as soon as possible. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the draft notice to residents as amended. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Then we'll go on to the date that this policy will be put into effect. Anyone care to make a motion on that?
Make a motion to set this policy in effect January 25th, 2020.
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to place this policy into effect on January 25th, 2020. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to old business number 2 then. Consider and take action on the process for preparation of agendas and council packets. This was brought to our last committee of the whole meeting. There's not really much information in the packet, but it's establishing a deadline for submissions for city council agendas, so staff's got the appropriate time and means to get all the information together in a timely fashion so we have what we need in our packets. So, Dave, did you want to add anything to this?
So generally, there's two things with this, and I'm proposing this, that we have a draft agenda distributed on Monday. This is when we have our regular meeting process and committee of the whole process, that be posted by the clerk and staff on Monday for staff, city attorney, council input, to be finalized by Wednesday, and then the cover sheets, documentation, information be to the city clerk by noon on Thursday, and that packet and that information would be posted publicly by the end of the day on Thursday. And there's always going to be exceptions, but what I'm proposing is that would be a more firm process with deadlines, and we all work together to enforce that. The more consistent you are, then everyone kind of gets more inclined, or their practice will be to follow that with quotes and information and so forth.
Sure.
So if you are so inclined to approve that, then we can implement that this week going forward.
Andy, question?
Yeah, is this policy?
This would be a policy of the council, right?
Okay, I don't have anything in writing on this item. So I'm a little hestant on approving something I can't
Well,
actually
unfortunately,
look
that wasn't included in the packet tonight.
at. The irony.
The irony.
Right.
Yeah.
So I trust your judgment, and I think I'm fine with it. But it's not in the packet. I don't know what I'm approving other than what you just said, and I like reading things. I like seeing it on paper and where it falls.
Sure.
But
Well, it's the
My
same
two
that was
cents.
presented last week.
right,
But
And that's
if
another
you
part
want
of the
something in writing, we'll have it for the packet next week.
that might be something for the future too, because this happens. This happens a lot. Like things in the packet from last week that are going to be approved on the regular agenda don't make the packet again. So that probably should be
Or at least a
policy.
note to bring them, or,
Anyway.
I guess I don't see any particular rush for implementing this. And I can't get over the irony of not having any information on it in our current packet. I like it as a goal, but I'm not quite ready for it as a requirement. I'm not quite sure how to put this.
I feel like they can do whatever they're gonna do, however they're gonna distribute their packets and whatever they wanna do, but if I wanna approve a city policy, I wanna see it. That's all. If you're gonna operate under what you just said, who's gonna stop you from doing that? Like, that's a staff level, that's a staff decision and staff operation, and, if you wanna make it a policy, that's great.
Yeah, I'd prefer that we do that together. Sorry. If you want to continue doing what you're doing, then we'll work with that. And I apologize that you don't have it in writing in front of you.
That's,
So,
like I said, I think you can still operate how you want to operate. I mean, we hired you to be our interim city administrator, and I trust that you're going to do what's best. But it's sort of, like I said, the city policy, when I see it, I want to be able to look at it, and, that's all.
Jeannie?
granted.
sorry, I wasn't here last week. Wasn't able to make it, but I wanted you to just kind of repeat, because I wanted to write and jot some notes down, but you said Monday, the draft agenda?
So the information that we have for the agenda
Yeah,
in the clerk's office, she would prepare a draft, and that would be distributed by email on Monday
draft
To-
via email to us.
to you, the mayor,
Okay.
and staff, and the
Okay.
city attorney.
Okay, and then you said Wednesday.
The idea is that that's distributed, people have input into it, to change it, add to it, what have you. And so that would be finalized on Wednesday internally, and then the staff recommendations, the documentation information would be due to the clerk's office by noon on Thursday. So
Okay.
she would compile the packets, finalize the agenda, and post it by the end of the day on Thursday.
Okay.
And I think in the past, you haven't had a draft agenda. I think the mayor and the council president have approved that. And I believe that it's been put out by Friday afternoon.
I just had one additional question. In previous municipalities that you've worked for, is that a standard practice? Or
The last couple of communities, it has been, yes.
I like the idea. I think, give some structure to something that's actually very important for the way that things work and the efficiency of the time that we spend here in this building and the efficiency of the staff as well. But I agree with Andy. I would like to see a little bit more, I'd see something actually in writing, but other than that, I think I'd be on board with that. Yeah. I like the idea of the agenda coming out Thursday rather than Friday at 3:30, pick up by 4. It'd be great.
It does give you an extra day. That's for sure.
I think there can be different perceptions as far as when we say the word policy. David said policy of the city council. We can make a rule tonight and say we're going to fine anybody up here that says this word $15, and if we all agree to it, it becomes a policy of the city council. And I think what Dave is trying to do is kind of empower us to say, do you want people bringing stuff to you on Tuesday night and dropping it in your lap, or do you want this stuff organized into an agenda so you have enough time to review it? Which I agree needs to be addressed. We need to kind of draw the line. And I've been one of the biggest offenders in the last 2 weeks of allowing exceptions to get people, things in the packet that I think are a bit more timely, or we need to address this, that if we wait another 2 weeks, we may be getting into a sticky situation. So, I have to check myself as well when we do this. So I think there's different approaches at adopting policy, but if you want a hard-written city policy that everybody's going to adhere to and refer to for many, many years, maybe that's a different route
I
or a
agree.
different
It
conversation.
would be how we would operate together, this council, this interim administrator.
Yeah.
For the next 3 or 4 months, probably 4 months.
That's kind of been my understanding of talking with David and Pat about it as well. It's just that we need some consistency to get us through the interim, and these are the expectations. If you don't have something submitted by this time, you're going to be waiting for the next meeting, essentially.
My only concern is with how many times that comes up that, oh, we need to really act on this, or, you know, there's work being put off because this hasn't been put through yet, and, you know, that makes me nervous as far as implementing that. Are we going to be able to make exceptions for situations like that? Or?
I'm not concerned about that at all because we're having a special meeting tonight, and I think that this council, in my history here, has been very accepting of rising to the occasion and doing what we need to do to get it done. I think what we also need to honor and respect each other's time to say, how many meetings do you want to have in a week? Do you want to have 4 meetings a week as things come up? If you look at the city fee schedule, I mentioned this at the last meeting, you can have a special meeting and you can pay for it. I think we need to protect ourselves to say, when you have your things submitted, you're on the city council agenda. I think we're dealing with things through special meetings like the budget process and other things because we feel obligated to make sure these things are carried forward. But we can't have someone kind of coming in saying, hey, I need this now. I know I should have done this 6 months ago, but I decided I'm going to do it today. We need to at least show us a little bit of self-respect for what we're doing here as well when we come to our meetings. So, again, I think that this was meant to expedite and offer some efficiency to the process through the interim with Dave, so we know how to operate between council and administrator. Trina, go ahead.
Oh, I guess I tend to be concerned more about meeting deadlines and convenience. I like the goal. I just want us to have a padding for making exceptions because they'll come up. And then there's also, the possibility of, no, this doesn't fit criteria for an exception.
I think that's why we're asking for the draft to come out earlier, so you can look at that and say, what's on the agenda? Do we have a 6-hour agenda? Do we have a 2-hour agenda? And I've had to do that. Andy's had to participate in that as well. I think this is very important. I'm actually kind of surprised that there isn't more support for it, having to deal with this on a week-to-week basis all the time. It's way more work than it ever needed to be, in my opinion, putting an agenda and supporting documentation together for the council to review before the meeting. So, Ed?
Andy was up first.
Oh, sorry, Andy?
Doesn't matter. I don't want you or Dave to think I don't support this, because I 100% do support this. But you made a point about is it a policy, or what are we considering a policy, or how is a policy adopted? I was concerned, like, I knew Katie hasn't seen this, and now we're asking her to vote on it. How can she in good conscience vote on it based on not seeing it, other than what she's heard? That was part of my concern, and again, and not in the packet for me to review again, to refresh my memory from a week or 2 ago. I can't even remember when it was. So that was my point. I 100% support this because I've had to deal with it. And again, we dealt with it tonight. There were 2 things that came up after the agendas went out, and we got more information that we hadn't had a chance to review. And Kim Lang was up there, and I'm trying to read through this report, and it's hard to make good decisions when that happens. So I get it. I just need to, and I just feel if we're going to make it a policy, even if this is just a policy for, if we want to do an official policy for the city and the city going forward, then that might be one thing. But if it's just for on the interim basis with Dave, that's a completely different thing to me. So if that's what it is, and it's not a city policy going forward into the future, beyond the new city administrator, maybe it's a good starting point for that city administrator, then I'm fine with it. But that was my point.
Next administrator
Granted.
may have a different approach, so.
So, I mean, I'm okay if you want to put it off to next Tuesday, and we'll have it in writing in front of you, and you can take action on it. It's
But I
okay
still
with
think
me.
you can just do what you were gonna do anyway.
Well, but I want your support of it, and
Well, and
You know.
maybe we vote on Tuesday, fine. But I still think you can still do it between now and Tuesday. You're gonna,
okay.
I mean, you have
You're not
the
going to
keys,
reprimand
right?
me if you get the packet on Thursday?
Right.
Good. All right. That's fine. Thank you.
Ed,
Appreciate it.
I just have a question about, and I'm fine voting this tonight, but I'm fine waiting till next week as well. But regardless, I have a question of mechanically, if a draft agenda comes out Monday, and if we are weighing in on things, do we run risk of violating quorum issues? How do we
If you,
say, I'd like this on, or I'd like this off, or that's one question is.
well, if you
what does that
do
look
it
like?
individually,
Okay.
it's okay. Right.
Okay, and then what happens, is there a contemplation for what happens if, let's take tonight, and new roofing information was given to us tonight, and that technically violates the policy? Are we gonna start taking things off the agenda? Or what?
That was my question.
Well, it's kind of, well, I'm glad I preempted you. I'm just- So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on
Well,
that.
my thoughts are that if we're not getting information in a timely manner, I would suggest the mayor take it off the agenda. I mean, why waste your time if you don't have the information?
And I agree, because I completely agree with
Our
Andy's
time.
point of, trying to read stuff before the meeting starts or during the break on the meeting is kind of, or during the meeting is kind of tedious. So that's a great solution. Thank you.
Trina?
Oh, I guess I still wanted to be open to the policy of possible last-minute supplemental, documents on the desk. As much as I despise not having time to give a good read to things, for certain items, I'd really hate to see it drop off. And then if it's something that is semi-permanent, some kind of repair, what have you, I just dislike the idea of the supporting documents just not coming, period, if that could be a problem.
Could you?
So like if it was something
Oh, like
extra
didn't-
for the roof, like
like
extra
denying
bidding,
that?
like
You're-
extra, yeah, if there were extra bids that came in at the last minutes, I'm like, oh, that is a great rate, if only we'd known that sooner. I like having the option of making exceptions.
And I think that's, we've used that terminology, I guess, since we started talking about this, is that, we have to use our judgment, but it's based upon circumstances. Do we have a 4-hour meeting in front of us, or do we have a 25-minute meeting? Do we have a little bit more time to consider things? Some of that information we may have seen a couple years ago. We knew a little bit more about it, but something, a report that's 60 pages thick that we need to make a decision on, I think we should just be tabling that item so that person can go home and relax and not be here for 3 hours waiting to have a conversation that we're not prepared to have. I think that's what Dave's trying to help us out of. We need to be able to make informed decisions with information and have that information read and digested while we're up here doing this. I think that's the intent anyway, to empower the council, not to lower expectations.
Yeah, and that would be the exception, not the rule. The normal policy or practice would be that we try to get all the stuff, the information before the meeting.
Yeah, and
With the
staff,
packet.
I mean, just staff assembling the packets as well. I've been in here days where the printer's torn apart, and they have to get someone in here to try to get the printer fixed so they can get the packets printed off by the end of the day Friday. We need to respect everybody's time here as well, so we can do this efficiently, so. But yeah, there's always gonna be discretion. There always will be. I don't think that this is going to be a hard, fast policy unless, you know, you can cite the fact that someone had the opportunity to submit the information and then the dog ate my homework and I want to be on your next agenda. It's simply waiting 2 more weeks. That's it. Or having a special meeting, so. Katie?
I just wanted to say that I like that you called it a practice and not a policy that last time. I think that makes a lot of people feel better.
Sure. Ed, did you have anything? No? All right. Why don't we just table this and just get a memo together for the next meeting, if that's okay, just so it's more clear. Then we've got some matter of record in the. Yeah, yeah, yes. Yeah. Supporting documentation due on Thursday. To at least have a memo to frame our intent here, so this isn't just all verbal conversation, I guess.
These
There.
cover sheet forms, is that okay?
The memo, yeah, the cover
okay.
sheet form, I think that's enough to outline it.
Okay.
Any more direction on this for Dave?
I appreciate your effort, I really do. I just don't want you to think I wasn't appreciative and I don't support it, because I do. For the reasons I
Well, I feel bad that it's not in front of you.
we're used to it.
It was a mistake. And, you know, it's the subject that we're talking about. So we'll just keep working at it.
Thank you.
All right, then we had a brief update report from you, Dave, if you wanted
It's
to.
okay if I stand up.
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
So you may.
Now you are.
You may have seen in my report that the judge asked to meet with me on a personnel matter. And what that is that the court clerk has accepted a full-time position with the city of Beaver Dam. And she will be moving on. She's committed to complete the work of the court till the end of this month. And the bottom line is that we're supporting the judge in posting the position and supporting him to replace the court clerk. So that should be posted by tomorrow. And I just want to give you a heads up about that. So if you see that posting, you know what's going on. That's, I mean, I can answer any questions, but the court clerk lives in Beaver Dam, and she's been a great worker, and I think the court is new. It just got established in May. It's doing well, and it's kind of a setback for the judge that he has to go out and replace Becky. But right now, the budget allows for 24 hours a week without benefits, and she's going to Beaver Dam in a full-time position with a full benefits, and that's in the best interest of her family. So the city just went through this process earlier this spring, and we're just updating that and posting and trying to connect to the market as best as we can to bring in the best qualified candidates. And the judge has to make the decision, but we're supporting him in that process. That's it.
Motion to adjourn.